So my quest today starts up this hill here on the edge of Hainault Forest and Hainault Country Park. Today we're out doing probably my favourite activity. Well, obviously walking is my favourite activity, but within the realms of walking, of all the different types of walks, I often feel that my favourite walk is, you guessed it, yep, we're off river hunting today. River hunting, and this is a river I've been wanting to walk for a number of years actually. I first encountered it walking through this area on the edge of Hainault Forest, and we're going to go and trace the course of the River Rom, the Rom. Not the river that gives Romford its name, but the river that takes its name from Romford. Romford, Essex, really, I'm sure most of you would think, but it is actually in the London Borough of Havering, so technically speaking, we are still within Greater London. How are you all? You're doing fine? You're doing well? I think today, I mean, it's a weird day today weather-wise. It's nice and bright and sunny, which is good. We're not getting the forecast rain yet, which is also good because the weather has been terrible. It's felt more like winter than summer recently. So I hope today the weather's going to hold out for us and that we're going to emerge into summer at long last. I really enjoy walking in this area here. I'll post some links below to the walks I did where I went along here in the snow. It was a couple of years ago now. I think it must have been the year of the Beast from the East. I think it was, what's that, 2018. And that was cracking. And I've done a number of walks through and around Hainault Forest. So I've just came down from Lambourne End, which is really delightful up there. And we're skirting the edge of Greater London here today. It's fantastic, and hopefully this walk will take us from the forest through Romford town centre, then it's going to take us in some sort of industrial edgelands and then right down to the Thames, I hope. I'm not entirely sure whether we can see the point where the Rom makes its confluence with the Thames, but I'll be a bit cheated if we don't see a bit of old Father Thames and old Mama Thames here in the Ben Aranovich books, the tidal Thames. Wow, look at that beautiful view there, looking east. So that was it's a slightly unnecessary detour over Dog Kennel Hill, but it was lovely, brought back lots of lovely memories. And we're now following a short bit of the London Loop. I've walked this footpath a few times. It's my least favourite thing, walking across golf courses. It's very easy to lose your way on a golf course, as I'm about to do now, it feels. Because you come out, look, you come out here. Where's the footpath, or do we just carry on down the hill? I think we just carry on down. Let's do that. If this turns out to be the wrong way, you'll know why. So the London Loop does cross over the River Rom. So that's why it's quite nice to be here. Look, we've got some lovely bluebells under the trees there. And although I've walked most of this section of the London Loop when doing other walks, most notably when walking to Havering at Bower and the amazing avenue of redwood trees there, which is kind of incredible location. It's one of the most stunning locations in Greater London, I would say, and I don't say that lightly. I haven't actually done this section of the London Loop as a section of the London Loop, if you know what I mean, from beginning to end. And I did intend to finish the London Loop this year. I've walked, I don't know how many sections, I'll put up on the screen how many sections I've done, but I'm not entirely sure if I will finish the London Loop this year. There's no real urgency to do it. I quite liked the idea of actually perhaps just spending a week doing it each day would be quite a nice thing to do, wouldn't it? I've been saying to myself actually that when I finish filming my London Loop walks, I'd quite like to just go out and do the whole thing in one go as a walk, and you know, not film it. Would be kind of an amazing thing to do, I think. Highly, highly recommend walking the London Loop. Highly, it's fantastic. I'll link below to my London Loop videos. And you can see now we're leaving the forest behind, although this is technically still part of Hainault Forest, managed by the Woodland Trust. And we're heading to the more built up fringes of Romford. From memory, the area I'm walking towards now where we find the Rom is one of the muddiest places on the planet. There's quite a good list of those around London. London contains a few of the muddiest places on planet Earth. If aliens are coming here to study our planet and our culture, and they're looking to study mud, they could do no worse than come to Greater London. I walked through here with a wonderful fellow called Rick Pearson, who made a great podcast series called London's Peaks, where he did walks to the highest points in all of the London boroughs. And we walked together to the highest point in the London Borough of Havering, which was up here in Havering Country Park. And that's when I went along the avenue of redwood trees. I'll link below to Rick's series there. It was a really great day out. Look, I think that's a hawk up there, isn't it? So the River Rom actually starts life as the Bourne Brook, just on the other side of the M25 at Stapleford. And then the Bourne Brook becomes the Rom just up here on the other side of Hainault Forest. You can't really access it here. I think this is the first point where you can really get to it via a footpath. And then it flows down under the streets. It gets culverted for a section, and it flows right through the middle of Romford town centre. I'm not entirely sure how much of that we can see. From the maps, it looks like it's above ground. I've seen photographs of people literally going into the culvert to access it. But then we go through some what look like really quite nice country parks, and the river once again changes its name, becomes the Beam River as it makes its way towards the Thames. It's a river of many phases and also a river of many names. Here's a little brook here that's come out of Hainault Forest. I think this is the Spurgate Brook. I could be wrong, I'll put the correct name on the screen. And that feeds into the Rom, which is just at the end of this field. And there's the brook trickling into the pipe, where it's going to take it towards the Rom, the River Rom. And here she is, the River Rom. It's taken us a little while to actually get a sighting, but here we are at last. What a beautiful little river. It's going to be really interesting to follow the journey onwards towards the Thames now, to see the changing landscape and the changing moods and phases of this beguiling little stream. So now I think we have to walk down this gravel road here, Carter Lane, until we hit the outskirts of Romford, and then we get another view of the Rom. And here's the continuation of the Rom. You can see how much wider it is already, and it's flowing here through farmland. This is not exactly your typical London street, is it? Lovely little country lane here. And the Rom is running just through that tree line there on the edge of the field. So turning into Cornell Way here, you can see we're dropping down into a river valley there, and then you can see it rising up steeply on the far side. Isn't this delightful here? You can see it breaking through the houses, but through this lovely little tract of grassland with the cow parsley in bloom. And I think we're in luck, and there's a little footpath we can follow. Looks like it's picking up either another little tributary there or some runoff from the houses. There's another culvert emerging here as well. I have to say the Ordnance Survey map isn't a lot of help on this walk today. It shows the River Rom as just about a mere scratch on the map, a little blue, tiny thin blue line. This footpath here isn't on there at all. So I'm mostly reliant on Google Maps today. Although we today call it the Rom, taking its name from Romford. Further on, where it becomes the Beam, that takes its name from a bridge that once spanned the river. But back in the 13th century, this little river here was known as La Marque Dic, La Marque Ditch. It's written in French, tells you it was obviously recorded by our Norman overlords. Literally just means boundary ditch between the two parishes, between Romford and Hornchurch. A humble little river, but a river with stories to tell, as all rivers do. You have to, of course, talk about Ben Aranovich if we're walking along a London river. I know some of you will think this is technically an Essex river. I guess you're right. But it raises the question of whether this river has a deity. And then we have to play the game of, if it does have a deity, what would that deity be like? If you're not familiar with the Ben Aranovich Rivers of London books, you will think that I've just gone completely mad. And the path continues. I must admit, this is a really unexpected treat. I thought I'd be road walking at this stage. This is fantastic. Well done, Havering Council. And now we continue through this little park here. We're getting close to the centre of Romford now. This is interesting. You can see the point here where the Rom enters its concrete culvert. Must be preparing it to go underground. Got a great bit of public information here at the other end of the recreation ground, Collier Road recreation ground. And it tells us that the Romans were known to have inhabited the Collier Row area where pottery and domestic remains have been excavated. So it says the name Collier Row comes from colliers, who were charcoal burners, inhabited the area from the earliest of times, and that would be from all the woods around here. Imagine it was the great forest of Essex. And it tells you here as well that it was rural, it was a little rural village right up until the First World War. And I love this, there's a comment here too, due to enlightened town planning throughout the Romford area. I'm not sure whether they're being sarcastic there or whether they really mean it. So you can see the bridge there, and this is where we do have to do a bit of road walking, I think, which is not so bad. I did expect that. That's the thing with London river walks. There's always a lot of zigzagging involved, whether the rivers are buried or above ground. You can't, or you can very, very rarely stick tight to the river for its entire course. It's quite funny. One of the associations with Romford is the electronic music outfit Underworld and their track Born Slippy, famous for being on the Trainspotting soundtrack. The original Trainspotting soundtrack talks about Romford, and I had actually forgotten that bit of information, but a lady just went running past and she was literally listening to that track out loud as she runs through the outskirts of Romford. I reckon that's the river god come to send me a message. And funnily enough, I think there are a number of other electronic music associations with Romford. I think to the extent that, I think it's Variety magazine, or one of the big American music magazines, even noted Romford as being one of the centres of electronic music. And of course Essex generally has got strong associations in that regard, you know, partly because of Vince Clarke, who formed Depeche Mode out in Basildon. Then he went and formed Yazoo. So you got Yazoo, you got Depeche Mode, possibly what, the greatest electronic music band in the world. Controversial opinion stated there. What do you think? When I was looking up the route of this walk, beyond what you can see on the map, there's always more quirks to a walk than you can see on a two-dimensional flat map. Most of the River Rom walks that I found actually start in Romford town centre, and to a degree you can see the sense in that, but I think you're also missing out quite a lot if you only start in Romford town centre. It's a good job I didn't do this walk when I originally planned to, because that's what I probably would have done actually. I'm glad I've seen these earlier stages of the Rom in the context of walking along the course of the river. Here's the Rom cutting across the road. So I think if we go through King George's playing fields here, we can walk beside the river once more, or at least see it, I think. I always find these eastern suburbs optimistic places. I think a lot of that is to do with the fact a lot of the housing you see around here, the big housing estates, are post-war. Some of them are homes for heroes estates. I guess a lot of the development around here was linked to the location of the Dagenham Ford's factory here, which is not that far away. Employed thousands of people. Of course, we're in classic West Ham United territory here. It's the final day of the Premier League season today. West Ham waiting to find out if they're going to qualify for European competition next year. That's the subtext to today's walk. Here's the Rom, just here. And we're just going to follow this little path here, which follows the course of the river. There we go, look. The A12 Eastern Avenue thundering its way to Norwich just as the rain starts to come down. And we're going to shelter in Curry's PC World. I do love a good subway. So into the subway we shall go. I mean, not a classic subway, very functional, does its job. It's not going to go into my top 10 subways though. So down the end of this street here, North Street, is the world famous Romford Market. I'm not sure if it is world famous, but it certainly should be. Dates back to the Middle Ages, but we'll talk about that when we get there. I am looking for some lunch at this stage as well. Wow, that's a really impressive building over there, isn't it? Beautiful bit of Art Deco, or is that modernism, or is it a bit of both? We always talk about this, don't we? What a beautiful building though. It's actually the Stagecoach bus depot. It's the terminus, I imagine, of quite a few bus routes. That's a bus spotter's paradise, isn't it? Welcome to Romford, historic market town. So what we got? We've got a couple of chicken shops, and then we've got the Tattoo Academy. I think that's where you can train. It's the UK official Tattoo Academy. And we've got a tanning salon next door. Romford's the eastern analogue of Uxbridge. Two towns perched right on the edge of Greater London. It's been my aim to walk between the two of them at some point, walk the width of Greater London. I might have to wait a little bit. Right, I need to find lunch and find the river once again. Quite like maps like this. It's just a nice linear map here. We're here, North Street, Romford Market's just over there. It's somewhere, I think, to the, I don't know, the river is under the town here somewhere. I don't fancy my chances of finding anything to eat along North Street here. Don't know if this clapperboard building here at the back of the commercial inn is genuinely an old building or whether it's just been made to look like one. I'd say that does look like an old building. That rickety roof line there. It's actually called the Golden Lion. So that's where I had my lunch. Cafe Bueno. Very nice it was indeed. Right, let's crack on and find this river running through Romford. So Romford really developed as a town with the coming of this market in the Middle Ages. I think this market started in the year 1247. So it's been here a very long time. It's a great historic medieval market. Actually, look, through here I spy a rather interesting looking church. The parish church of St Edward the Confessor. It's a fine old looking church, isn't it? Although there's been a church on this site since the 14th century, this building here actually is part of the kind of Victorian Gothic revival, and it dates from 1849. River walks take you to all sorts of different places. Not going to find the river in here, although it would be really nice. So I wonder if this is the Liberty Shopping Centre, not the brewery. So the name Romford is derived from the old word for meaning wide ford, which I suppose might point to the fact that the river was once much more significant than it is today in terms of its size, its girth, that it would need such a wide ford. The main industry in the town for hundreds of years was the Star Brewery, which opened in 1708 and closed in the early 90s, 1993. And then the site was demolished. I think now it's a shopping centre, but it was once the main employer in the town. It even had its own railway sidings, and it kind of led to the growth of the market town into the big sort of significant town you see here today. So we'll carry on down South Street till we hit the edge of the town centre, then I think we should get a view of the river. The Rom is down there behind this big building here. Kind of like this type of, what is this, 1980s, 1970s architecture. Would have looked all gleaming and modern and new at that point, wouldn't it? Would have indicated towards a kind of future. Now look at it, sort of maligned. It's the army cadets. And here she is. I've really missed our little river. It's been a while since we saw her, hasn't it? And now you see the Rom in its concrete culvert. It's a little bit sad in a way when you think about how it looked when we saw it on the edge of Hainault Country Park. A little bit more road walking to do yet. We're going to go up to the roundabout, turn a left along the main road, and then hopefully soon we should be walking beside the river. Got to do another subway here. Into the subway. I wonder if this will be a more impressive subway than the others. I doubt it. Romford really is the town of the subways. It's subway town, Romford. There we go. It wouldn't be a river walk if we didn't get a little bit of industrial estate action. And that's what we're going to get now, because I think the river's just down here. There she is down there. It's quite overgrown at this stage here. This is the real London, not Soho and Piccadilly Circus and Buckingham Palace. It's these industrial estates on the edge of Romford. Rom Valley Way. That's where we are, people. We're now in the Rom Valley. There are walks you do, and you plan them out and you think that's a day. And actually, when you come to do it, it turns out to actually not be that long a walk. A little bit like when I walked along the roading from Ilford down to the confluence with the Thames. Today's kind of the opposite. When I've looked at this walk, I thought, well, that doesn't look like a particularly long walk. But because I had to go over to the outdoor centre at Lambourne End quite early this morning, I started there, and that elongated the walk quite significantly. And now here I find myself at 3 o'clock, having started at about 9:45, and I've done about 10 miles so far, and I've still got quite a long way to go, and my ankle and my knee are really letting me know about it. I really do love this type of landscape here. These arterial roads with the retail parks and the industrial estates. I don't know what it is. I guess it must be something to do with growing up by the A40. My wife grew up in Sydney, right by the beach and the ocean, and she pines for the sea. I grew up just outside High Wycombe, beside the A40, and I pine for landscapes like this. Landscapes like this are all about possibility, movement and possibility. They're not made yet in the way a mountain or an ocean is already defined. This is like a blank canvas. Here's the river, soon to break free. As we get across the road there, it's running through open space once again. Here it is. Hall for hire. Carries Hall, Rush Green Road, Romford. What kind of things go on in there? Do you reckon it's like keep fit, dance classes, that kind of thing? And there's a massive YMCA. We're going to go down here, down through Grenfell Park. Here's the Rom and its natural state once more, free of its concrete culvert, running down towards the Thames. It's great, there's this little path that hugs the river and cuts through this woodland. It's a real delight. Intriguing bit of concrete here, just above the riverbank, And my first thought when I saw it was, I wonder if this is part of the World War II defences that we're going to find, I think, in this section. There's quite a bit of concrete here in the undergrowth. You can see it over there too. I have a feeling though, I can't quite get up there, I'm afraid. You have to forgive me due to the state of my legs. But it's more to do with water treatment, I think, than it is to do with World War II. Could be wrong. I'll welcome your thoughts in the comments. So I think this is the point where the Rom on this side of the road becomes the River Beam on the other side as it flows through the Chase. So this could be a question of bye-bye Rom. Hello Beam. Welcome to the Chase. This is going to be a complete mudfest through here. I mean, look at that. It's crazy. Wow. This is a truly depressing sight here. You can see where they've made a little dam to collect all the rubbish that's flowed down the river as it's passed through the houses and through the town centre. Look at that. Look at all that rubbish which has been chucked in the river. If the Rom does have a deity, they will not be happy about that. If the Rom does have a deity, they won't be very happy about that at all. I'm going to go through this gate and onwards through the Chase. It's interesting, there's a note here. The Rangers Service are aware of the build-up of rubbish in the river following heavy rainfall and flooding. We will arrange a group clean-up when resources and staff are available to do so safely. Really beautiful down here, the River Beam, gliding through the Chase as it gets into Eastbrook End Country Park, although technically speaking, same tract of land. And here's its continuation. It's that time of a walk as we move into late afternoon. It's a Sunday as well, Sunday afternoon. It's the time of a walk when walks from the past come to visit you. Something about this time of the day. Now, it doesn't really matter where you walk, what type of landscape you're walking through. It's the stage of a walk. It's the final quarter of a walk. It's the time of day. And all those ghosts of walks past come back to you. And it's a really lovely feeling as they waft through your mind, all those different landscapes and all those different thoughts and associations. I love it. So this here must be part of the old World War II infrastructure, I think. I know there is some in this park. I mean, this may not. This could have had an industrial use, but it could be the remains of something, like an anti-aircraft gun, maybe a tank trap or something. And now we're going to go over this footbridge, over the tube tracks, and then continue our walk on the other side. Had a little chat with the gentleman back there. He was telling me about the Romford canal. It was a planned canal to link Romford to the Thames and would have gone through Dagenham, but it was one of those failed canal schemes that after an initial bit of work, apparently there wasn't much work that was done. The gentleman said all you can really see is a little bit of the cutting back there, so it may have even been part that we looked at. After that it was abandoned and the appetite was lost to create a canal through Romford, but that would have then gone out into Essex. I wonder how many other schemes like that there are. There are some canals in London which have been filled in. One walk I'm going to do one day is the Surrey Canal that goes through South London. Part of that's been turned into a walk now. As we come on and off the course of the river, and the river changes its name, it's a reminder really that the river is just a means to open up the landscape, a mechanism if you like, to guide you through the terrain. It's not the end in itself, although obviously it's our guiding spirit. It's the narrator of our walk. But in a way, it's just about a passage through the land. Well, I was just wondering when I'd find a pillbox for shore, and here it is. It's just sat beside the path here. Probably part of the outer London defence ring, built to protect London in case of German invasion during the Second World War. You find these littered all around the edge of London. So the beam is just through there, on the other side of that undergrowth. The gentleman back there was saying it's pretty overgrown at this stage. And we're going to carry on along the path here. It's not an enormous amount of distance to go, but I will pre-warn you now, I don't think we get to follow it to the Thames. I'm pretty sure we can't actually. The river looks very peaceful here. Echoes of the Hogs Mill. So we've just got to get across the Rainham Road here, and then we'll be going along Beam Parklands. I think that may be the last section of the river that we can follow. Let's see where we get to. What we've got here, we've got a really good pillbox up here. These are amazing monuments in the landscape, really. Very poignant remember of one possible past where these would have been used. We should be very grateful that they never were. I mean, I think they are used now, but not for obviously their intended purpose. This may be one of our final views of the river. Here, the river beam. We started following the Rom. It's going to flow beneath the road up ahead, and although it flows above ground, I don't think any of that area is accessible. This is a bit of an unexpected treat. I think this here is the Wantz stream, W-A-N-T-Z, the Wantz stream. I'm not sure if that's a correct pronunciation. A lovely little river, I've never even heard of that before actually. And it makes its confluence with the beam just over here on the other side of this bridge. I was just thinking about the way that sometimes river walks can be a little bit anticlimactic because of the nature of when you get to a source, or if you can't get to the source, or if you can't reach a confluence, you sometimes just find yourself in a car park or an industrial estate. But this here, this little meeting the Wantz stream, is makes sure that this is definitely not going to be anticlimactic. We've got the River Beam sluice gate here, an auto sluice. Something I completely didn't pick up further back there is the Star Brewery must have used the water from the River Beam. This is an interesting twist to the plot. At the end of this path here, what I thought was a path, we find ourselves at a locked gate, and over the other side of the river there you can see a path. So I guess you're supposed to have gone over the bridge back there at some point, but I wonder with my compromised leg, my ankle and my knee, whether I can get over this. It doesn't look very high, does it? Wish me luck. Well, that wasn't pretty. It was pretty undignified, but I did get over there. Such as my desire not to walk all the way back to the bridge. Problem is that I can't push off from my right leg. But anyway, we did it. Now I don't know what's going to happen, whether this is the end of the walk or whether we can carry on. There's a building site over there. Thames Avenue can't be resisted, surely. This development here is called Beam Park. I wonder if it's the old Ford Motor Works. Could well be, couldn't it? Fords at Dagenham. Dagenham and Fords. The two words that live together. Hang on, look. Got a little gate through here. Let's see, let's go over here. So Fords and Dagenham are synonymous with each other. And at one point, apparently 40,000 people worked at the Ford car plant here at Dagenham. Today, I think there's a fraction of that still employed here, manufacturing just the engines that go in the cars. And they still knock out, I think I saw one figure that in 2018 they produced 1 million car engines. That's 1 million cars, that's incredible. And of course, tens of millions of Ford cars were produced at the car works here at Dagenham. My feeling is that this is going to be our last view of the river. I don't think we can get any further. I don't think we can see any more. I think I'm going to make the executive decision to end the walk here. I'm looking at Google Map. I think there's a possibility that if at the end of Thames Street the road does go over the river one more time, but then I think that's it. And that would be on the A13 at that stage. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, I'm pretty exhausted. This walk has been significantly longer than I thought it would be, and I think it's now must be at least the longest walk that I've done this year for sure, and certainly the longest walk that I've done since I injured my ankle. And yes, look, there's confirmation over there. You can tell I'm getting tired now. Can't use proper joined up words. No public access. So this is as far as you can go along the river. Wow. Thank you so much for joining me on another cracking river walk, and one that's been on the list for a couple of years now. So hopefully some of you will be happy to have seen me walk the River Rom and the River Beam. Never disappoint, do they, river walks? Never disappoint. Well, I've got to try and get back to Leytonstone now, so have a great week, take care of yourselves. And you know what's coming now? I look forward to seeing you on the next walk, wherever that may be. Probably won't be the Wandle Trail next week, because I don't want to do like 2 river walks back to back. Maybe, I don't know. Let's see how we feel. I've got something else in mind. Special walk that I've wanted to do for a few years now, on camera. Take care. See you next week.